Welcome guys, this will be part 1 of particle effects. Now particle effects are a lot more complicated and it's a big subject to tackle than the materials I did last time. So I will split this up into at least more than one video. So to get started off, particle effects basically can also interlink with our materials and our static meshes or any of the textures we use. Because we can use those materials and those meshes or those textures inside our particle systems. And you guys will have seen particle system in all the big games and the movies as explosions, magical effects, rain, snowstorm, lightning. All these things are normally done by using particle effects. So first, to create a particle effect, we'll right click in our content browser. You can click on particle system right here. Or you can go to add new and choose a particle system. Now before we get into that, actually I'll just show you something. Now first thing you'll notice is this, when you start up your particle system and when you open up the file, you will have a default which will be a just simple sprites which are done on the CPU. Now there's a few differences between CPU sprites and GPU sprites. The first major one that you guys can see here is the CPU's ones, the numbers are limited, so you can't have in this case more than 1000 on the CPU, whereas the GPU sprites, I have 50,000 here and I'm not getting any FPS issues or anything. So you can have lots and lots of GPU sprites. There are some options missing inside GPU sprites, but I don't think it makes too much of a difference when you consider how many of them you guys can actually have. Now to go into a bit more detail, GPU sprites all still use CPU, just to clear that up. So they use CPU to spawn the particles, but any other calculations are done on the GPU, which obviously reduces the load from the CPU and you can have a lot better performance in this. Now first thing we'll do is to get started, we'll right click in our content browser, make a new particle system, and to show you all the different examples, I'll be using the GPU sprites. So we'll call this P_GPU sprites. P, of course, so we know that it's a particle system. And now basically you need some things for, if I show you guys. So right now if I open this, let me just drag it on the screen. Inside this particle system, right now you don't have anything. This is just the standard thing that it starts off with. But you need something down here, so you can assign this inside your materials. So for this we'll create a new material right here, and I'll call this M_GPU sprites. M of course meaning material, and we'll make a simple material down here. Now for this we'll bring in two things. Firstly I'll bring in a particle color. Now this particle color will you guys need this if you guys want to change your colors inside the particle system for your particles. This basically tells the particle system, this basically updates the colors down here, so you can change your colors from within your particle system. And then I'll add a radial, gradient, exponential. Now you guys don't have to use this, but this is the one I use a lot, and I usually like this one quite a bit, and I'll show you what effect this gives us. I just plug this into our base color. Now you guys can see that this is giving us like this effect. So this bit has gone black now, and the rest is kind of white from the sides. So this is the effect that I normally go for with these particle effects. So anyways, we'll disconnect this by holding Alt and left clicking. We'll add two multiply nodes by pressing M and left clicking. We'll connect the particle color into A and the exponential into B, into both B's, and then we'll connect the alpha from the particle color down here. Now we'll connect this multiply into opacity, and up here this multiply, now we can connect this to base color, but I will connect this to the emissive color, so we can have glowing material instead inside our own particle system as well. Then we'll select this and we'll change this to from opaque, the blending mode, to translucent. And I'll go down here, change the lighting mode to surface translucency volume. It's not necessary, but it's my preference. Once you guys are good with these things, you guys can get them to be how you want them. Now I'll just save this. And then I'll just minimize this. Now we'll double click to open our particle, the sprite thing, and now I'll go through all of these one by one. So first, if you guys notice here, first up here we have this empty bar right here, and down here if we right click, so our type data defines what type of particle system we want, and we call these modules these, and this whole thing is called cascade. And down here you have your graph where you guys can like for example, if you can either type values here, or you guys can change values up here, which is useful for overlive things, which I will explain as we go along. So now, right now, this is being emitted from the CPU, which is why we can't have that many of them. So we want to do here, right? We'll just right click here and go to type data, and we'll choose GPU sprites. Now GPU sprites you can have lots and lots of, which is obviously really good. Now we'll go into our required. Now this is where we can choose our material that we just made. So I'll type m underscore GPU sprites. Now if we just wait for it and let it load, our material will show up in here. You guys can see right now it's just a mesh, but it's showing up. But while it's doing that, there we go. Now the first thing we'll look at is spawn. Now I'll go up here to show you guys what spawn does. So I'll move this on the side and explain it, so you guys can see it down here. Now spawn, basically, we can go into rate and click on distribution to see how much will spawn. So a spawn of 1 will spawn 1 particle and at one time. So it will spawn 1 and then 1. And if you turn this value up to 100, it will spawn them. It will spawn 100 particles. So it kind of determines how many particles are spawned inside your scene. And then the next thing, if you go down here, is lifetime. Now lifetime is how long which is the second one right here, lifetime. So lifetime is how long your particle stays alive inside the scene. And so you guys can have a minimum and a maximum, which would mean that the particles, so some of the particles, so if I turn this down to say like 2 and the max to say 5, now some of the particles disappear after 2 seconds while the others just keep going. So this is the type of effect you guys can get from this. I'll just change this back to 1 and this back to 1 as well. Then the next thing we have is our initial size. Now the initial size, so click here. Again we have 2 values. We have a maximum and a minimum. So in this case I have turned all of them down to 5, and you can see that the particle itself looks a lot smaller from this size. And then we have it on 25, which is the same as this, same as down here. So you guys can have you guys can choose your particle size depending on what you're trying to achieve, and then the last thing we can do is we can mix them together. So if we set a minimum value and a different maximum value, we will have a blend between the two. So we will have the it's like some big particles and some small, and they'll all be done randomly. So this is our initial size. Now the next thing we have is our initial velocity. Now our velocity kind of determines which way our particles shoot towards and how fast they go towards that direction. So in this example right here, I have turned all these values down to 0, which is why our particles are spawning. Lots of them are spawning the same number as this are spawning here, but they're all spawning in the same spot, which is why you can't actually tell that there's more than one particle there. But in this case, however, I have turned the x up to 100 and the so the max x at 100 and the minimum x at -100. So what this has done is now it's going towards both directions. So same with anything, wherever you have minimum and maximum. Minus on an axis would make it go towards the other, like for say left side or the right side. So you can think of these as being the left side and the right side. And on y, if you turn this way, then you can think of it from the left and right side from here. And z, you can think of top and down. So if you have your value for 100, let's say on the z-axis, it will shoot up towards the top, and if you have a -100, it will shoot towards the bottom. So this is how you guys make your particles shoot towards some different directions. And the next thing we don't have it here down here, initial color, but if you guys want to bring that up, you guys could right click and go to color and add an initial color. We'll be going over all of these as well in this video, so just hold on. So first of all, we have an initial color. Now an initial color stays throughout the it just stays the same throughout the particle of throughout the lifetime of our particle, however long it stays alive. And then the next thing we have a color over life. So for this, as you guys can see here, down here I have multiple colors blending into each other. So at 0 seconds when it spawns, it's kind of orange. At 0.5 seconds it goes to yellow, and then at 1 second it goes to green, and at about 2 seconds it turns to blue. So right now, down here, if I show you guys what how we can do this, I'll just use this particle as an example. So in color over life, you guys can go down this this ladder right here. Don't worry too much about of the amount of detail. Only things you need to worry about right now is the out value and the in value. So in value 0. So 0 is our spawn point down here. If I change the color to, let's say, this blue right now, so when our particle spawns, it spawns with this color, this blue color, and then at 1 second it turns white, which is down here. So if we change this color, so at 1 second it turns into red, and we can change this value. Say if we say like 0.5. Now at 0.5 second it starts to turn red, and we can add more by pressing this plus key. So down here I'll type 1.5 perhaps. I'll need to also turn up the lifetime, turn this up to 5, show you the exact effect. Now we'll go back to our color over life, and for the last one I will choose a yellow color. So now it starts off blue as we chose up here, then it goes to kind of red, and then it goes to yellow as we can see up here. Now this effect, you guys are saying that it kind of disappears. To solve this problem, this will also happen inside your scene. All we do is we click on bounce and we click on set fixed bounce. So this kind of like this kind of works out the area that needs to be visible, how much of the particle should be visible no matter which side you look at the particle from. So this is another tip you guys should keep in mind. Alright, so now since we've done our color over life, next thing we'll look at is, I'll leave this this collision for later. Now we'll just look inside here. Now if I right click here, so the first thing we'll look at is acceleration. Now if I go into constant acceleration down here, so this acceleration will kind of determine. So if I type 10 on the x-axis, or 10 is too small of a value, I'll type 100. Now our particles are going in the x direction towards this side, and of course if I type minus 100, they will start to go towards the left side. Towards the right side. So acceleration kind of determines which direction basically our particles shoot towards. And then the second inside acceleration, the second option we have is drag. Now drag, if you guys notice already, if I turn this up to 5 maybe, you guys can see that the particles aren't moving much, but they're still moving towards that side. So our drag kind of slows down our particles. It's the same thing as swimming. For example, if you run in wind, you can run faster, but if you try to swim inside water, there's a lot more drag. Or vehicles. I don't want to get into too much tech stuff right now, but basically drag slows down your particles in simple terms. Now I'll delete our drag and I'll delete our constant acceleration. Now next thing we have is attraction. I don't know if I can show this to you guys using just this example, but in simple words, right now inside attraction you have a few values. Sorry, if you have only one value, and right now I decided that point gravity. So you can make your particles go towards one point in any area down here. So you can choose a random spot anywhere around, and then kind of like that point will actually attract your particle towards it. And then the next thing we have down here is collision. So collision scene depth, and down here we have 3 options in response. If you look at response, we have 3 options. So we have bounce, stop, and kill. And for this, to show you guys what each of these do, I'll go down here. So now bounce. Now to show you guys this, I'll actually open this particle right here. So I'll go into collision bounce, and I'll leave this open. Now if you guys look at this, so now I added this sphere in the middle. So this particle has bounce turned on. So whenever it collides, you have to make sure that that the mesh has a collision enabled. So when it collides, particles start to shoot off into different directions depending on where they collide on this mesh right here. Now if I show you something, now if down here I go to since I've just opened this, I'll make this bigger. I'll just maximize this. Now inside collision we have a few other values. We have resilience, and we have friction. Now if I turn friction up to 1, let's see what happens. Now you can't tell too much in this, but for this I'll turn the this thing off. Now you can see friction kind of slows down the particles by a lot. So when the particles collide, they're not really bouncing off as much anymore, because friction is kind of like disabling their ability to bounce up. If I turn this up to 0.5, they bounce a little. So now this tactic, this friction, can be really used to show water. Maybe if you guys want to make water, let's say, perhaps if I turn this up to 0.8, it kind of starts to behave just a bit more like water, and you guys can obviously turn up the speed at which they fall with your acceleration. And so yeah, so this is our bounce effect. Now the next thing we have here is stop. Now stop is as simple as it sounds, as you guys can see here. So when we have a collision, the particles just stop. They don't go through. Nothing happens to them. They don't go through anything. Now this can be useful for things like rain or snow inside your scene, because you don't want rain to fall through. You don't want rain falling through your buildings or going through your character, or snow to do the same thing. So this can be really useful, of course, for those reasons. And then last thing we have done here is kill. Now what kill does is, as soon as our particle hits a surface with collision, of course we need to make sure collision is enabled on our meshes to get this effect. As soon as our particle hits anything, the particles basically get deleted from the scene. In simple words, all that happens is they get deleted from the scene. So these are the 3 collision effects. Now I'll just delete this collision from down here. And next thing we will look at is event generator. Now I can't show you guys this, since I said particle system is such a big part of this engine that making a whole video on this will take a really long time. So I want to keep this quite simple, and I'll show you the event generator. So to get your event generator, you guys can go to event and choose one of these. Now you can use this to trigger in-game responses, which I won't. To be honest, I haven't done much with these event generators, but you guys can make responses. So if you guys look here in events, you guys have a kill all and a spawn receiver. But I won't go too much into these, and we'll just move on. Now the next thing we have is kill, which is not showing off here. Showing up here because I believe I have a GPU sprite selected. But since I've mentioned it, I'll just tell you what this does. So kill, you guys can delete your particles at a certain height or something. So kill will probably appear in the CPU sprites. You guys can like delete your particles at a certain height, or make boxes. So any particle that goes outside the box will automatically die. Now then, the next thing that we have here is lifetime, which we have already covered, and then location. So location, initial location. Now if I go to initial location, so this determines where your particles actually spawn. So let's say if I turn this up to 100, now our particles are spawning from the center point up to 100 on the x-axis, if you guys look here. But if I turn this Z up to 100 as well, now our particles are kinda like also going towards the Z-axis as well. So, well, sorry, Z wouldn't work, my bad. Supposed to do Y, so 100. So now our particles are spawning for 100 from the middle towards the Y, and 100 from the middle towards the X. And you guys can do minus 100 on both of these, and then they will spawn equally from all sides. So from the middle, 100 this way, minus 100 this way, 100 this way, and minus 100 this way. So this is initial location. You guys can use these for many different things. For example, rain. If you do the velocity, let's say minus down here, and delete everything else, and then add an initial location, your rain will come down from spawning from a wide area. So now this is your location. Next thing we have in here is a thing called orbit. Now if you go to orbit, you guys can all of a sudden see this doesn't give such a nice example of it. Actually it does kind of. So you guys can see that our particles, once they spawn, they go to the right, they come left, and then they go around and then kind of disappear. So orbit in simple words, just make sure particles orbit around, and you guys can change the values down here. Add scale link. I won't go too much into these because when you guys are making specific particles, this is only when you guys will need to change these. And I will delete this, and next thing we have down here is a rotation. So rotation again. Right now we can change the value up here, maybe increase this value. So we have two. We have an initial rotation in rotation, and we have an initial rotation seed. So rotation kind of like it kind of controls the rotation of your particles. And then if you look here, we have a rotation rate as well, so the speed at which your rotation occurs. I'm just increasing this, but you can't really see the effect too much here. But if I go back here, so down here you guys can really see. Now this is a thing I have put together. I'm using quite a lot of these effects down here. You guys can see orbit and rotation in play down here. So initial rotation and orbit is in play right now. So you guys can see the objects are rotating and they are going around. So they are kind of orbiting and rotating at the same time. And then there's different rotation speeds. And now if you look down here, the size, of course, which we have already covered. So we have a size by life. Now, as we mentioned with the color by life, so whenever you see this word by life right here, this determines the life of the particle. So how long the particle will stay in your scene, and what will happen to you guys can increase the size by life or decrease the size by life. So if it's let's say at 1 second, if it's 1 centimeter long or large, I don't know how to say, but or 1 centimeter wide, I suppose. Then at 2 seconds, perhaps you want it to be 10 centimeters wide. And then you guys have size scale and size by speed, but we won't get into too much of these things right now. So, and then spawn, of course, how many you want to spawn, and then sub image. Now you guys can use the sub image index. This basically allows you to use animated sprite sheets. So you guys can use animations that you have made on your sprite sheets. But I understand as a beginner, you guys have no idea what I'm talking about when I say sprite sheets or animations. So don't worry about this too much. So this is basically all the basics of your particle systems. Now one more thing I want to show you guys is, if I go here, if I click, if I select this particle system, and I open this up for you guys. Now you guys can have, so inside your cascade, you guys can have as many particle emitters as you want. As you guys can see down here, I have made 2. So to make a new particle emitter, you guys just right click on here. Go to particle system and add new emitter before or after. Now if I add after, you guys can see we have a new thing going off here. So this, if you guys go to the starter content and look at the fire, for example, that's just one example. The fire will show you, you will notice that it has about 3 or 4. So first you have the initial fire image, which is being displayed, and then you have the sparks, the sparks emitter, and then you will have smoke, and then you will have some extra light inside. So this is how you guys can mix different emitters together. And if you want, let's say you're working on a particle system and you don't want to see all of them at once because you can't see the one you want to work on right now, so just click this tick arrow right here and this one will disappear. Same thing with all of these. If you, let's say you don't want a color over your particle, just click this. Or if you don't want them to orbit right now, you can just click this, turn off all of these things, and then your particle will kind of start behaving normally. So really depends on what you guys are trying to achieve. And same thing, you guys can click here to disable this, and or you guys can select this to only show this one rather than having to disable each one. If you have so many, you guys can just click this and it will solo show you this one. So this is the basic setup of a particle system. However, before I do end this, I do want to mention that there's more to particle systems or particle emitters than just GPU and CPU sprites. I mean, there's more type data. So you have an animation trail, you have a beam data, you have a mesh data, you have a ribbon. So just because mesh sounds very, very simple, I'll just define it in a few words. So in mesh, instead of using a texture or a material, you guys can use actual meshes. So you guys can have, let's say, that material sphere I had outside, you guys can have those. In fact, I can demonstrate that right now. So if I go to my I'll disable these. I go to my mesh data. I type here, let's say sphere. They're really large, and so you guys can't really see very well, but right now, because all these things are turned on, they're going crazy. But right now we have our mesh spawning inside, and any material you have on your mesh will also show up inside here. So guys, this was the basic startup to your particle systems, and now I've just messed this up, so I'll just delete this altogether. So this was the basic introduction to your particle systems. You guys can play around, make cool stuff, even using these basic tactics, and just like playing around with the values or changing the colors. You guys will have lots of cool things. And in the next video, hopefully, I will try to demonstrate a few of actual particle systems. I did make a rain particle system and a snow particle system. You guys can find them on my profile in one of my earlier videos, I believe. So you guys can see how I made rain and snow. I was using GPU sprites for those, and this is how you guys make particle systems. And in the next video, hopefully, I'll cover the other particle systems and how those work, and I'll hopefully give you a few more cool examples. Now, I do want to tell you guys, I'm not the best at particle systems. I hope you guys found this useful, and I'll see you guys in the next video.